Hey, true believers. Chris Mack coming at you with Dark Knight's Metal, Batman the Merciless. And just think, we've all gone through the evil Batmans together. Yay! It's just the Merciless took a little while because of the move and having to pull all my boxes out of storage and whatnot. It's just... Anyway, the reason this looks kind of crummy on camera is because it's one of those shimmering covers. It looks nice and, if you look at it up close compared to here, which is not doing it justice. But nonetheless, I do sadly feel like, even though I love the writer on this issue, I feel like it's the weakest of them all. What do I mean by that? Let's go ahead and jump into it. If you recall when we went over, let's say, the Batman Who Laughs or the Red Death, etc., so forth, it took a little while for the momentum to pick up on how Batman was going evil, how he succeeded in taking the power, say, from like Cyborg, Green Lantern, etc., so forth. Now, remember, they only get one book to tell a story. So before we dive into the Merciless and Earth -12, let's talk about who made the book. This is called The Wrathchild, which I looked it up, and this was a nod to the song Wrathchild by Iron Maiden, so yeah! Peter J. Tomasi is the story and words. Francis Manipal is doing the art. Tom Napolitano is doing the lettering. Jay Fabuk and Brad Anderson are doing the cover. Here's everyone else working on the book and the creators. And let's just fix this one. This was Batman's created by Bill Finger with Bob Kane. Let's just call a spade, shall we? So in this universe, Earth -12, Wonder Woman and Batman became an item. And there was this giant war that happened here on this Earth. And it was caused by Ares, the god of war. They thought that they would never be able to stop it, but they finally do, but at the cost of, spoiler alert, Diana's life. Now, you're like, okay, whoa, wait a minute. I want to read more of this. And this here is where I kind of start to feel that the book suffers, because then we come to Earth Zero, which is the Prime universe. And oh my God, look at the dialogue. Jesus. Now, remember what I just said. You only get one book to kind of explain the origins of all these evil Batmen, which I appreciate that Scott Snyder, after the second issue of Metal, kind of went on hiatus of the main book, did these, did the Bats Out of Hell and all the other tie-ins like the Gotham City Siege, because they talk about how Amanda Waller deployed the Suicide Squad into Gotham to fight Olympic Mountain or whatever it was called, and they kind of disappeared. So even though there was a lot of books, at least it paced itself. As were Dark Knight's Metal, that was, or Death Metal, I don't want to get into that. But here, I understand that Tomasi has to get across all these talking points, but whoa, God! So it's Steve Trevor, General Lang, Amanda Waller, and some other characters that are DC staples that I'm not really well versed in. And they're all trying to talk about what they want to do. They want to launch this thing called Valhalla on the mountain in Gotham, because they said that it should take out Superman. But before anybody can really make a decision, and all this talking, this is what bogs down the first half of the book, is it feels like a chore to read all this exposition dumps. But finally, we see Batman as the Merciless. And he says, look at them playing at war. Me, I've lived it practically my whole life. I was only 8 years old when my war began, with a shot fired in a Gotham City alley. It began with an oath to myself that what happened to me could never happen again. An oath that I would wage my battle justly, with rules, with mercy, unlike my enemy. What a fool I was back then. So what I want to talk about here is Ares. The way he's able to wage his war on Earth -12 is he makes a helmet that increases his powers 100-fold. So it's hard for anybody to go up against him. But when they finally get there, the helmet, Ares is still alive, the helmet's been knocked off. Bruce takes it. And he says something to the degree of saying, I'll take the helmet and I'll fight my war fair and justly. So let's keep that in mind. I'm sure that I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but I just want to kind of put it in context of this Bruce here. He says, I'll show them the truth. hearing their screams, I cannot help but think of my old rules, my code, and I even feel an urge to spare them, like Diana urging me to stop. But the moment passes quickly. I give them valiant deaths, clean deaths that only a sword can deliver. And it's just kind of like, whew. So here, this is what I was talking about. This is where Diana dies at the hands of Ares after they've won the war. And Bruce says, Diana warned me of its power, its ability to corrupt. But at that moment I saw it. Saw the possibility. If I took the helmet, I could wield its power mercifully, with restraint. For the first time in history, war could be just, fair, with codes and rules. I would reshape war. And yeah, that didn't happen. Because remember, absolute power corrupts absolutely. He goes, I stare at these so-called warriors in the war room. They fight like dogs because they can't protect themselves from my presence. You would expect too much from them, Diana. You would expect them to band together, negotiate, compromise. And while this is going on, once Tomasi kind of gets going on with the Merciless himself, you're feeling it. You're just like, damn, he really loved Diana. And, you know, kind of why he's sort of twisted now. The artwork complements it. I love this sort of, I call it negative artwork in a sense because there's no real definition. It just looks kind of like pulpish and a fill. And it just really adds to this book, making the Merciless feel otherworldly. And of course, just like the other evil Batman, he's approached by the Batman who laughs. And I love how this book here just says, you know, like, how to destroy the, it's like basically a dummy's guide, and it says how to destroy the multiverse. And then here, for those of you that may have missed it, that is Grant Morrison's Multiversity map. And his Multiversity, I thought it was going to be annoying, but if you actually read, not so much the main book, but all his offshoots that he wrote during Multiversity, damn good. Highly recommend. I'll try to go over those eventually. But anyway, the Batman who laughed coerces the Merciless by talking about how Earth -12 is going to be destroyed, and how if we go up to the Prime Universe, then we have a chance to rule and be powerful. And so by doing so, the Merciless joins. And again, here's a recap of what we saw in Dark Knight's Metal issue 2. And the Merciless is talking about how he couldn't even bring himself to look at this Earth's Diana when she was unconscious. He's like, I couldn't look at you. And again, the plot, I wish they would have focused more on the Merciless instead of the whole war room scenes. That really kind of slowed it down. But these moments of reflection really are what get this book up and going for me, honestly. Now, there's a twist at the end of this book. This came out in, what was it, December of 2017, I think it was. Let me double check that. Yeah, December of 2017. So I'm sure a lot of you have read it. But for those of you that haven't, I don't want to spoil this book. Because Dark Knight's Metal, I know a lot of people say, oh, it's overplayed, blah, 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 blah. I get it. But at the time, it was something different to see how Bruce, you know, if he gave into certain urges, impulses, if he finally snapped, what would happen. And that's how I enjoyed the book. Plus, I'm a metalhead, so kind of the plays on all the little metal jokes, it made me laugh. This book, though, again, there's just a lot of exposition dumping because they have to get you up to date on what is happening in the story with all these crossovers. That's why when you're going to do an event book, slow down just a little bit. You know, I have not read all the metal crossovers. I've read the Bad Side of Hell. We've gone over these, of course, the main book. But I think there was like 2 other events, and it's just, or, you know, events within the event tie-ins. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. And it's just kind of like, pace yourself, calm down. I know you want to make money, but you got to remember that collectors only have a finite amount of income, and we don't want to go and kill ourselves because, you know, bills, life. So if they would have just, if Tomasi just would have said, screw it, I'm not going to even try to keep up with all this exposition, and I'm just going to dive into the backstory, just like how other writers did for the other, like the Drowned, the Murder Machine, etc., so forth, I think this book would have shined a lot more. But because they tried to throw in the main plots, which I understand, the Merciless coming in and destroying, but they should have opened with that instead of all that exposition dump. Because right there you open and you go, oh, Jesus, this is going to be a chore to read. But once you kind of get into his backstory, his contemplation, that's where it shines. And because Tomasi knows how to touch emotional nerves, it works. It tugs on heartstrings, especially the end. I can't emphasize how much that just kind of punches you. It's like 1, 2, bam, and you're just like, whoa, what did I just experience? The artwork complements it perfectly. It just has that nice, gritty nastiness about it to show that this is not the Bruce Wayne that we know. So Dark Knight's Metal, Batman the Merciless. Not the strongest of the miniseries, or the one-shots, whatever, but still a damn fine read. So I highly recommend picking it up. If you've enjoyed it, please first and foremost support your local comic shop and see if they have a copy in stock. If you've enjoyed this review, we really would appreciate it if you take a moment to hit like, share, and subscribe. Helps the club channel more than you could possibly know. And if you wouldn't mind hitting that fancy little bat bell next to subscribe, that way as we continue to upload content, you guys get notified. Come to the channel, and we love talking with y'all and hearing your thoughts and feedback down in the comments below, or our social media pages, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description. So with all that said, thank you so much for stopping by. Hope y'all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, true believers.